Want a high-end white tablecloth steak eating experience right at home? Join us at Bid on Beef. Connect with hardworking American Angus and Wagyu ranching families to source your beef from a trusted and reputable source. In a fast-paced and fun auction process, you're in the driver's seat with Bid on Beef. You choose the cuts, you choose the price, and you choose the ranch. Buy with confidence knowing beef will soon be shipped to your door. So savor the win and the thrill of victory knowing sizzling steaks are in your future. Learn more at bidonbeef.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining the bullpen today. Once again, I've gotten really, really lucky because I've got really two outstanding guests with me in the bullpen today. Two really good friends. I like to call them friends, and I think we are. One is an old-time friend that we just actually went to college together. He drugged me. We were just talking about that. He drugged me through for 4 years, and he left to be a vet, and I still got a few hours left. And that's Dr. Kelly Heath. And he right now is currently, go ahead, Kelly, give us a little bit of your background. You're currently with UNL in what position?
Certainly. So I'm the Director and Attending Veterinarian for the Animal Care Program at the University of Nebraska Lincoln. And that's a research compliance job. My job is really to oversee all the research programs, make sure we do things ethically, treat the animals appropriately, make sure that we do it all in compliance with all the federal, state, university, and city regulations.
Right.
And then the final part of it is just to be there to help researchers be successful.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So
cool. And then the other guest is Chris Earl. Chris is CK6 Consulting, reverse rocking our ranch. And then just about a year and a half ago, I like to call you the founder of Bid on Beef. Would I be right?
It's been great. Yeah. June of last year.
Yeah.
So it's been a rocket ship. We're just trying to keep up with it. So
yeah, so awesome. So kind of what brings us together today. We're just going to jump right into the heat of the discussion here. And Kelly, you mentioned this. You're kind of in the research part of it, but we're all three basically. Beef is pretty important in our background. The consumption of beef, the production of it. And recently, we're seeing a lot of things come out in the news and other things that I think maybe not everybody has 100%. They don't get the correct knowledge. A lot of the stuff I see on TV or sometimes I read, I don't necessarily believe. So I want to go right to the source and see exactly what's going on. So Kelly, you and I, we kind of got together a couple weeks ago and we hadn't seen each other for 25 years, you said? So we were having dinner and you mentioned there was a research project going on out at Meade. Tell us a little bit about that project.
So there's actually 2 or 3 different projects going on, but one of the projects we have at Meade is involving trying to capture the amount of methane that's emitted by grazing cows out on pasture. And they got some technology where they sample air samples 24 hours a day during grazing time, and then in the off season and when. So that generates a tremendous amount of data. And lots of things there. So that's one of them. Another one they got going on is we have a very kind of a confinement unit where I wouldn't say it's airtight, but it's pretty airtight. And we actually put animals in there for 5-day periods, and we maintain air sampling throughout that 24 hours a day and check the methane production from those cattle in that confined area. And then a third kind of aspect of it that we do actually on campus where we're very focused on the rumen production of methane. And we have little we call them head boxes. Think they look like telephone booths that you would see we used to see around town, but we have those there and we're able to capture, we put those cows in there for about 24 hours and capture what the amount of methane they would take back out.
This is on like a feedlot type steer?
Yes, feedlot steer, dairy cows, type things.
Okay. So. How do you do it? How do you do it on the cows out that are grazing? How do you capture
the ones out on there? They got some kind of a laser system that captures air samples, and it's not a direct measurement. It's just measuring the air sample in the environment.
Okay. So here comes maybe the multi-million-dollar question: who funded? Where did some of this funding come from?
Lots of places. So as you know, funding for the universities is hard to come by.
Right.
Federal funding is drying up. We see a lot of that in the current press. State funding has been cut, and you heard a lot of things about cutting that. So our faculty actually, they throw a lot of proposals out there, and I would say maybe 1 out of 10 actually get funding. So they look for funding from not only the federal government, the USDA, specifically USDA, NIFA, the National Institute for Food and Agriculture, and then they look for funding from NIH and NSF, and then other USDA agencies, but particularly they're interested in funding from industry. So you got commodity boards like the soybean producers, corn board.
Mm-hmm.
They'll fund some research, and then certain industry companies will fund research. So we really they throw a lot of things out there, and they're just happy to get funding wherever they can, because, like I said, we generate a tremendous amount of data, especially in that where you're collecting air samples and you got to analyze those air samples. That all costs money.
So this particular study with the methane, is this something UNL wanted to start, or was UNL approached by somebody and said, "Hey, do you want to study this?"
Sure. So the one that I think spawned this conversation was the one around the Bezos Fund article that just come out.
Yep.
So that one was spawned out of a group of global geneticists that got together, and they were looking for funding. And they were approached by this Methane Hub group, and they throw and ask for proposals, for research proposals. So a group of geneticists from many different universities across the globe have contributed to this, and they put that together. So it was about probably a $25 million grant, and then they worked with the Bezos Fund people. I was told that they actually were pretty decent to work with. They didn't try to change the science. They didn't try to bias the science in any way. They just helped them get the grants moved out, so their reviewers could review it in a pretty timely fashion. So they were pretty pleased with that. They did get that. So UNL's part of that particular study is the two geneticists that were mentioned in the article. Will take a lot of data from a lot of folks, and they're going to just analyze that data, look at the genetic variability of the cattle across the globe that contributed to that.
Okay. So I think probably what triggers a lot of people that in my circles, and maybe yours, Chris, is when they hear the name Jeff Bezos. What's your opinion on that?
So I'm not appreciate everything Doctor said, because getting some direct contact from this is important too, right? Yep. So I don't know Mr. Bezos. Really have nothing against Mr. Bezos, but I do know what his intentions are. Right. And it seems as we go along in rural America that we are constantly in a role of apologizing for ourselves, and to people, frankly, that should be our advocates for one, and then to the overall public, and frankly, Les, we're looking at 300 million plus people that have decided that the responsibility to feed themselves is no longer in their daily agenda. That leaves it to about a million of us that have chosen that responsibility. Right. Yep. And it's not an easy task on a daily basis. Absolutely. You know that, and I know it. And for some reason, we are pinned down as the people that have the problem.
The cattle producers.
Yep. And so now we are in a role to where we've allowed ourselves to get to, frankly. I'm not here to not take responsibility for where rural America's is.
Right.
I mean, I've watched this happen for 30 years. And that we are now not only having to do what the masses tell us we should do, but now what we need to think as we're doing it.
Yeah.
And one of those things that spurs me on is climate change.
Yeah, I'll agree.
I don't even start the premise.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the premise. I don't believe in methane.
Right.
I know there's methane.
Yep.
I am a believer in God. I'm a believer that he created a globe in a vast universe and galaxies. And I am a firm believer that he made a planet that man cannot take away from him. And to quantify all this in the thing and to break it down to a cow that creates a gas that is now threatening to where billionaires, multi-billionaires, think it's on their realm in order to help the masses that the founder of the methane hub. I mean, he has many quotes out there you can find. He's not a fan of cows.
No, not
and
at all.
My guess is he's probably not a fan of individuals that have independent thought that live in rural America.
Yep. That's kind of, my personal issue. That's my personal issue with the whole, I love what the university is doing and everything, but when it comes down to it, when you do a little research, okay, where's the money coming from? It's coming from the Bezos, the globe. What, I don't even know what they call it, but he's basically, he can eat whatever he wants to eat, but he doesn't like beef.
Yeah,
he doesn't like cows. So we're taking money, and I get that the university needs money for research and different aspects like that, but when it comes from somebody, I always am a believer, be careful who you're taking it from, because they have, in my opinion, they probably have an alternate expectation somewhere down the road. I mean, Kelly, what's...
Yeah, so that is true. So and to follow up on what Chris said, we're backed into a corner, and we don't have a lot of facts. There's some things that we just don't know. And that's what folks that I work with are trying to answer some of those questions. They're trying to answer the question out, is methane part of a 10-year carbon cycle? And doesn't increase because it's put into the environment, it's taken up by the plants, circles back around. Yep. It's about a 10-year cycle if you really look at it. So we need to prove that. So that's one of the things that we need to dispel. We need to look at the way our cattle actually, there is some variability in the amount of methane that cattle potentially could produce. That's one of the things we're looking at, trying to quantify what that is and what those cattle look like. And then another part of that, besides the genetic part of it, we're looking at the microbes inside the rumen and inside the gut and how that actually digests things. And we're looking at things that still are making those cattle more efficient.
So there's so many things in what you just said. To me, the larger framed animals are going to produce more methane.
Theoretically.
And then the different type of feedstuffs and stuff, I can see that. So it probably affects, we feed things here different in Nebraska than the way they feed things, say, in Florida or down in your country.
Yep.
Chris, down in New Mexico. So.
Yeah, well, I think Kelly brings up a good point, and I like it where he's in I think he said a rock and a hard place or something. And I think that's what these wealthy people leveraged against you.
Yeah.
They know you need the money, right? But in order to take the money, you have to buy into their agenda. You have to buy into their forecasting of how they envision the world.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I see it too. So I'm hoping that the university and like I trust Kelly that when they do this, you guys get facts. So like you said, when they came in, so if we can prove these facts that, hey, these cows aren't, doing whatever they say they're doing, I think that's going to be great. Just as long as they don't, influence you with more money. Say,
that's $27 million left. Yeah. It was a lot of money, right? Yeah. I've been in rural America since I've been, a kid. Yeah. $27 million.
27.4.
$27.4 million. Yeah. Would go a long way on some ranches that I know.
Oh boy,
we could do a lot of research for that. So, and I think that is what is kind of being exposed as we go through this model of the very wealthy that have agendas that align themselves with corporations, and then the associations, a lot of them non-for-profits, align in that path in order that money flows through. We're seeing it in the news every day. Yep. Every day.
Yes.
And I think that for me, look, I'm not unaware to the human condition. I'm not unaware to people wanting to keep their jobs and to people that want to support what they do in order for job preservation. But it seems like the producers always forgot. The producer funds it himself.
Right.
He doesn't get funding.
Absolutely.
And I think so the production of that, I think the production of owning the land and the production of the animal as institutions, associations tie into efficiencies, and they tie in to make this thing linear, right or wrong. Right or wrong on climate change and methane, it's a reality.
Yeah.
I'm not unaware that it's not a reality. it's a reality in the minds. I don't know that it's a reality in fact.
Right. So, and you said associations when you were talking here. Okay, University of Nebraska got what, 2.3 million, Kelly?
Yep.
American Angus Association got how much? 4.2, 4.3 million?
Yeah.
What's their role in this?
Well, I think the University of Nebraska got 27 million. I think if that was
they're part of that 27.
part of the 27.
Yeah, we got 2.3.
They got 2.3,
Okay.
but the Angus Association got over 4 million.
Yeah.
Why did the Angus Association get 4 million?
Well, it's why I appreciate the invite and why I was here today. I view them separately.
Yeah.
I view University of Nebraska and the American Angus Association separately.
And they should be.
I can probably have a more in-depth discussion with Kelly on research and doing the kind of things that I think land-grant universities should do,
right,
as it relates to this, you know, on research and development and finding this out. I have a harder time with the American Angus Association. That's a breed registry.
Right.
In order that they play a role in this, because it is a non-for-profit. It is built and funded by members,
by the producers.
And like it or not, you can do all the research you want on these two individuals or these two companies that produce the money.
Yep.
They are anti-producer.
Absolutely.
And anti-cow.
Absolutely.
And they are, and so, you know, look, the money came in, and with, and another thing I put is as a member, I didn't know.
You had no choice. You had no say, did you?
And I probably shouldn't have a say because I'm not on the board. But I would think on something like this that you would, I couldn't find it in the minutes.
Shouldn't your board members relay this information on?
I would think, because if you look at this, I'm a big fan. If it barks like a dog and sounds like a dog, it's a dog.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos and the Methane hub, they are not exactly wanting rural America to thrive in the cattle business.
Didn't he gave $30 million to the University of North Carolina to develop a fake meat.
Sure he did. They're a long way from done.
So that's.
So I think so. And one of the big things, I think and I'm not going to speak for them. They'll speak for themselves whenever they see fit. My guess is it stems through the selling of beef. My guess is they want to align themselves with some sort of movement that's fixated in climate control, in order that they can sell to a high-end product, which is CAB, that they can sell it to restaurants and sell it to that kind of thing. They want to be able to point that they
want to put that logo on their product.
Yeah, they want to put that on there. Well, so what they're telling you is perception is everything, right? Yep. Well, you can't have that side of the argument and not have our side of the argument.
Right.
If perception is everything, then what they've done is add to the perception that cows are the problem.
Yeah.
And so it's actively, and for some reason in rural America, this is happening more and more and more or less, is the advocates that we have out there, the people that don't have to go do chores every day, that are walking into offices, that are in Washington, D.C., that are talking to the universities, that are talking to the high-ups, that are talking to corporations. I think it's leaning to where there's more job preservation than service to the people that they are serving. And because at the end of the day, as this thing grows, they want to talk about food chain and efficiency. I think efficiency and food chain has elevated itself in a priority over and above the individual surviving in the cattle business in rural America. And our advocates should really be, for me anyway, especially a non-for-profit, especially people that take dues, especially people that don't have the financial risk, and that if they're really wanting to serve good people that are doing our way of life, maybe we want to focus how young people can get into our business rather than how much methane's in the air. Maybe we should focus on, maybe guys like me in rural America need maybe a second person that can supply me with fuel or corn or something like that. There's nobody left, Les.
Yeah, right.
So those kind of things I think are probably areas of concern, even on the pedigree, on a lot of data that we currently already have. There's a lot of data that comes on the pedigree that I would like to see verified. 4.7 million go a long way in verifying a lot of data.
Yeah.
Instead of looking for methane.
Exactly. So that's kind of my thoughts. So Kelly, you said, geneticists, are you guys working with the Angus Association with any of this information, or?
Not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think so. I didn't. When I talked to the faculty that's in charge of this.
Yeah.
He didn't mention the Angus Association. He mentioned getting information from other geneticists around the country.
Okay, yeah, but I think when you and I were talking, you said you had is it mostly crossbred cattle you're working with, or what type of cattle?
So,
what type are you?
Well, the active study we got going right now is mostly crossbred cattle. It's like a very, very diverse genetic set. I think it's got almost 18 breeds, probably in some kind of a composite. And so we've sourced those, and the phenotype of those cattle are alpha to omega, skinny cows, fat cows, cows in between. And so, like I said, what they're looking at there is amount of things that are being produced out of the rumen. We're also looking at what's coming out the back end, you know, and into the air that way. And then we're really trying to determine if, the microbiota of the gut, that how that is affecting it. And there's a lot of things we can do to maybe affect that, make those cows more efficient, to maximize their genetic potential, and make better feed selections,
right?
That can help those cows. And at the bottom line, I think we're actually still trying to do feed efficiency, profitability, and improving animal health.
Exactly, same thing we've been
trying. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
and you'll find most everybody involved in agriculture research still has that background. They come. We're all kids that grew up on ranches and farms, and we're all still focused on doing the right things, answering the right questions for the right reason.
Right.
And I think that is important too, because that is the way the American Angus Association has crafted this. And I I'm not gonna gauge if they're truthful on it or not. That's what they've written, and that's what they've said. But I think it just like any of these things where rural America's thing, you have to look back at the premise. What are we going to do with the result? What are we going to do with the result of this technology? And frankly, the result of this technology is funded by people that want to see less cows.
Right.
That is the premise.
It just baffles me. What are they going to do with this information?
So I think
what are they going to do when it comes in and it doesn't meet their bias?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I talked about the grant, application process.
Yep.
They didn't try to change the science, but they might try to change. Always concerned about how they might try to spin it. How do they spin the results?
I would like to see that too, Kelly. I would like to see the application. What did and not so much. I don't have a dog in the fight with University of Nebraska. But with the American Angus Association, that I'm a member of.
Yeah.
What did you have to sign off on to get the money? I just would like to know. Yeah. I mean, if they're portraying a belief system that is not my belief system, and they are concerned about climate change through cattle, if that was the premise that they have to sign off on in order to get the 4.7 million, I'd like to know that, because I'm a member.
Well, I think a lot of members.
Right.
And how many members? I have no idea. How many millions of members are there of the Angus Association?
I think I'm going to guess here, but I think there's 23 to 25,000 members on at the association. I think that's juniors and everything.
Yeah.
So, and I think so when it comes to a breed registry, and look, we're getting into areas, and as the American Angus Association grows, I mean, I think they're a $90 million non-for-profit. They have their own AGI is their own for-profit entity that works as a genetic company.
Yeah.
And the foundation is growing, and people are spending a lot of money. I mean, then human nature takes over.
Right.
Human nature takes over, and sometimes when human nature and your belief system crosses my belief system, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And that's why I would like to see them stay focused within the mission statement and within the confines of a registry, and let the University of Nebraska's, the land grant universities, the ones that have, a dog in the fight, or, if they want to do the research, I really don't have any problem with that.
Yeah. That's I guess, I have no issues with UNL doing what they're doing and stuff, but when the Angus Association, when I read that part of that threw up a red flag right away.
University of Nebraska is not affiliated with cattle business.
No.
University of Nebraska is an educational institution.
But it was kind of, I think the Bezos group or whatever, I think they're pretty smart when they did this, because Nebraska is known as the beef state. So that was in the back of their mind when they say, hey, so here they're going to, if that comes out in what they want, or however they want to spin it. Well, this research was done at UNL, Nebraska, the beef state, the heart of cattle country.
A guy doesn't become his worth less without being a brilliant man.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant man.
Yeah.
And you know what he's brilliant at? Leveraging
absolutely.
human nature and people.
That's what.
And there's no question, by looking at this, if you were able to distract your agendas, distract your occupation, there is absolutely no, you have to see what this is.
Right.
This is an effort to eliminate cows in order to combat climate change, which he's hung his hat on.
Yeah.
And that directly affects my family and my livelihood.
Because the fake meat, the climate change, and then he's pretty buddies with Bill Gates.
Yep.
So I mean that's just nothing
Yeah.
real positive there for a cattle producer.
Yeah, I mean, but to their defense, we have put ourselves in this position.
Right.
Les, we have not, for some reason in rural America, we have not understood our leverage. And our leverage is ownership and work ethic.
Well, you kind of have, Chris.
Well,
it goes back to Bid on Beef. You started that.
Yeah, as a result of right.
You had the 4 major packers. Now you're going, ranch to plate to table or whatever. So, and you're revolutionizing that industry, that part of it.
Well, it's kind of you. We're a blimp on the radar of this thing, but it is a small effort to help the people that we know and love in order to become successful in the cattle business. There's no question, Les. Chris Earl is not special in that way. There's a lot of people out there that have ingenuity, that are really good at what they do. The problem is, Les, is that the margins have been shrunk to such a level that people are really left between, do I really stand up for this? Because if I do, there's a pretty good chance my buyer won't come buy my fats. There's a pretty good chance I'll lose some bull buyers. So they're really left in that position. Do they go along to go along? And these people that do this know exactly where they're putting these producers. They know exactly the leverage that they're influencing on them. And until we can influence the market at a higher percentage enough level on volume that the owners of the land and the cattle say, not today, these things are going to continue to happen. So my only effort on this, to be frank, since you brought me up on this and since I'm here, is really a biblical pull that I have. And my biblical pull here is, are you just going to keep your mouth shut, Chris? That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Because if you do, if you let them quantify me, that's how I look at this. That's how I look at environmental. That's how I look at climate. If you let them quantify me and cap me in that I am all-knowing and almighty, and I'm talking about God, then you will go along with the humanism of this, and that will not happen in my life.
Yeah.
I live next to a mountain. I tell people this all the time.
Yeah.
I have winds and weather that I am absolutely zero control of.
Absolutely.
Those mountains at some point popped out of the earth.
Yeah.
Some point there was massive rivers running across me. If I'm going to think that can never happen again, if I think we've got that kind of control that we can affect the atmosphere and that he built,
true.
Then I'm putting myself in God's position, and I'm not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent way to put it.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, no, but I did the whole Bid on Beef thing, and we'll talk about that again later on other ones. But it's amazing.
Thank you
for what's going. I just remember. I think it was your very first auction. I went down there.
You did
at Texas, and one thing I just want to tell people: do not listen to a Nebraska football game with an earbud in one ear and trying to be bidding on beef in the other ear.
Yeah. Well, you did good for us.
It cost me some money that day, Chris.
Well, we'll make sure we stay in those Nebraska football games for auctions.
Yeah, but Kelly, going back, I mean, what other kind of studies do you have going on at the university other than the methane one with the beef right now? There.
Well, that's really one of the big focus. The main focus is just feedstuffs.
Feedstuffs.
How does feedstuffs affect the gut? We talked a little bit about that the other night. There's 5 rations that every steer gets.
Yep.
You guys know what those are? It's a ration you put down on a piece of paper. And then there's the ration that you're going to mix in the bucket. Then there's the ration that you actually deliver to the bunk. Then there's the ration that the steer actually consumes. But the one that means the most is what? The one that he digests.
The one that comes out the other end.
Yeah. So
it's a very great point.
We've done a lot of work on, we can easily know what we're putting in the bunk. We can sample that. We can sample, we do, rumen cannulated steers, and we can sample that rumen, and we know how things are being digested there. But a little more invasive types of things where we actually put ostomies into intestinal tract, like a duodenum or to an ileum or cecum, so we can sample the digestion that's happening at that point, so we know where it stops, where it starts, whatever, and then we can also sample the manure that comes out the back. So that's I find that fascinating and interesting to be able to look at all those major spots and know how we're affecting that. And then we have a large group of folks that are just looking at the microbiome of the gut. We've learned a lot over the years about the rumen and all the things in there, but what about that small intestine and the large intestine of this bovine, and how can we affect that outcome, make it more efficient on less fiber or more fiber, or low quality feedstuffs? How can we change that microbiome and affect that outcome? Again, looking towards improving animal health, feed efficiency, and then also the genetic components of that. How does genetics play into that? Right. And you guys, working with the genetic side, the breed associations and things like that. We're trying to fund or not fund, but fill a void. Fill a void is what I'm trying to say of knowledge to help make better selections. You can select better if you know more about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Kelly brings up a great point, Les. I mean, I think I'm one of the most traveled guys in the Angus business. I probably do 120,000 miles a year. I hit every region. Yeah. So one of these things, I look at these studies and that kind of thing, and even you look at the current data that we get to use and the current genetics, it is amazing how I see different fruition of those genetics in different regions. And then you throw the different management schemes on top of them. Which a lot of it come about by the ability to what they can feed. I've never seen a more diverse time right now, because frankly, a lot of people have different wherewithals and how they're going to feed their animals.
Absolutely.
So you see the manifestation of these genetics throughout their various parts of their life, which makes it very challenging on how animal plays into different regions. And then at the top of the spectrum, you see a total emphasis on efficiency.
Yes. And
that is a worrisome. It's a worrisome path, because as much as I love genetics, as much as I love that, but I'm a people person, right? I think the fruition of our life is people. Right. I don't want to be known as a cattle guy. I'm at the end of my life, I want to be known as somebody that loves people. We have to be able to utilize every region of this country just for the sake of the good parts of the country. That is the family life that gets born and raised on ranches. Yeah. That value of that land has to stay, because we just can't turn it into hunting. No. So, so we're meeting this clash between private sector entrepreneurship and efficiency. And there's a clash there, because as we become more efficient, the entrepreneur can actually be bought out, can go away. And we're seeing that in every small town that I go, and I'm a capitalist. I believe in all that. But the individual is succumbing to the corporation. And that's not good for really the aspects of the American way. And that's getting greater. Kelly was talking about efficiencies. I mean, how many dairies we know raising F1 crosses? Oh, that's becoming a huge deal. Huge deal. There's going to be a lot of dairies going up south U. Yes. I mean, and into Kansas. And look, I'm not opposed to it. You want to put it up, you want to go, let's go. But a lot of those are happening because the emphasis of corporations, the emphasis of academia, the emphasis of associations is focused on the food chain, which is feeding the people in the cities. And we're losing the rural people, because the individual in rural America is no longer competitive enough to run against the special circumstances that a lot of these corporations get. And that is a troubling, as I travel the country, if it wasn't for the Casey's and if it wasn't for the co-op in town, there'd be nothing. Yeah, that's true. And that is not good for America. It's not good for land values either, Les. I mean, and land values hold a lot of wealth in this country, and they got to be able to have a flexibility to run cows. And it's amazing how our economy really comes down to the cow. Yeah. And because those cows need to exist, because they hold value in the land. So the clash is getting greater. It's getting greater. Interesting. 1,000 people that exit our business a year. The margins just aren't there. Yeah, well, and
and like you mentioned earlier, for the young person to come in and take over, it's hard to find enough people with the work ethic to come in.
COVID zapped us.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
To find people, with the work ethic to come in, and then, they've seen their parents work and struggle for so many years, and then they, don't carry on the family business.
Bankers have a tough time lending to cows. Bankers, and they got their own pressures, and they'll borrow, they'll lend to crops, they'll lend to land, they'll lend to equipment. But boy, you start talking cows or something to them,
they want you to sell them. That's the first thing they want you to sell. Sell your cows.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of people are.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. The cow herd's now the smallest it's been in.
Oh geez, I think it's 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
I actually think actually think it's less than they even say.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
And I don't think it's, you guys probably know better than me. I don't think they're retaining many heifers. I don't think
it's still going down less.
Yeah.
People are healing up.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of the coal prices. Coal prices are extraordinary.
Yeah.
You can send your 2,000 pound bull in and get a check for $3,500.
Yeah. At least. Yeah.
At least. So it's an interesting time. I appreciate you having me, because I do think our advocacy for rural America individuals, entrepreneurs that are of not like mind but are of independent mind,
right?
They are on the fray of what's happening here.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of get back to the whole Jeff Bezos and stuff study. So I think I'm glad, Kelly, you came, because you kind of opened up my eyes to what the university. Okay, they came this. They weren't, they didn't get their arm twisted to start with, but let's see what happens at the end, and see how if they try to spin the study or everything. And then Chris, I think your point of view from the Angus Association, what they're doing. Yeah, I bet you less than 1% of the members probably knew that they actually got that money.
I didn't know until I saw it in Beef Magazine.
And you're pretty. You study that quite a bit, don't you?
I like to think I stay in touch with it all.
Yes.
Yep.
Because how many bulls did you help market, or were you? How many bull sales did you?
Oh, I don't know how many less, but we did $25 million this spring.
$25 million
in sales this spring, and we've got over 30 clients. And
right.
I probably walked 8,000 to 10,000 bulls this spring and winter. And so a lot of people lean on you for advice. A lot of people lean on you for guidance, and so when things like this.
So you're in the know. So if anybody would have known about it, you should have known about it. You'd like to think so.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I would like to think I get a lot of calls. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly, is there anything you want to add for the?
Nope. Just really glad that you invited me on today.
Yeah.
It is fun to hear Chris's view on this.
Yeah, I think we all have views. And that's a nice thing. It's nice to be able to sit down and have a discussion, not an argument, but just a discussion, and see each other's point of view, rather than in this day and age, a lot of times on social media, people can get, their keyboard warriors, and then things get all blown out of proportion. And or you open up a magazine or something, you can't really believe what I have trouble believing a lot of stuff, so
I got no problem losing, Les. I just want the debate. I got no problem losing.
Yeah. As long as it's a good, healthy debate. And
absolutely. It's good for everybody.
100%. So I really appreciate you guys coming in. I know, Kelly, you had a little shorter drive than Chris. Chris he's gonna be back in New Mexico by
1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock in the morning, and be up going strong again tomorrow. So that really means a lot, Chris.
It means a lot. You had me,
Kelly. It really means a lot to me to have you come back to see you again.
Yep. Thanks.
So and we'll try to do this again. We'll try to have this study. How long is this study again?
3 years.
3 years. So good Lord willing, we're still all around in 3 years.
Yeah, and that's the truth. We're getting to that age.
I speaking for myself, I got more in the rear view mirror than I got in the front than the windshield. So
only tomorrow,
right? So thanks a lot, guys.
Yep, thanks, Les.
So and we'll see, but everybody just keep eating steaks. So and tune into the bullpen, and we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks a lot.
A Huda Media Production.